hate that my hair is still like such an awkward length for a braid. Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video we are going to be doing a 5-star predictions video. Before we get into anything bookish, however, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments what was your last 5-star prediction that ended up actually being 5 stars. So yes, this is my second time around of doing a 5-star prediction video. I'm usually kind of hesitant about saying these because, you know, I want to enjoy the books I'm reading. I want to go in expecting every book is going to be a 5-star, but let's be real here, everybody kind of assumes that they have 1 or 2 books that they just know are going to be 5 stars. Before we get into my newest ones, I thought it would be fun to react to my previous video where I listed my 5-star predictions and see how those held up. So I will have the original video on the cards up above as well as in the description down below, and then I will put the little quick video that you're gonna see in this little corner right here. Okay, so the first one is a nonfiction book, and that is From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty. All right, so this is actually a library copy that I'm holding up here, but I since bought my own, and I loved this. This is definitely 5 stars. Pretty much every one of Caitlin Doughty's books I have read, I've really enjoyed. I think she just has such a way of making a topic and a industry which is usually pretty dark and not a lot of people want to talk about so fascinating, and I just love the way she talks about death in a way of how it can connect people across many cultures, which is particularly what the focus of this book is. Yeah, I'm not at all surprised that I loved this one. I think at this point when I filmed this video, I had only read her memoir, but I've since read all 3 of her books, and I cannot wait for this woman to write something additional. She is just so interesting. She is so eloquent, but at the same time, she makes it so easily digestible for the average individual, has a wonderful way of talking about this topic and making it something that can connect people and be empathizable with her audience. So yes, this was definitely 5 stars. After that one is Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. Okay, so at the time I did not own this, but my brother was kind enough to buy me a copy, and I did really enjoy this book. It was my first Fredrik Backman, and it is a little lighter in comparison to some of his other work, I know, but I didn't quite give this 5 stars. It was definitely a high 4, and I had many tabs. I really enjoyed his writing throughout this. It definitely is a character-based story, so I wasn't really shocked that I loved that aspect of it. I was, however, very impressed with Bachman's character work because there are many people involved in this hostage situation, but he does a fantastic job of distinguishing every single one of them, at the same time making them all have this underlying connection, which is why they all start to bond in this scenario that they're put into. I did really enjoy this, but this wasn't quite a 5-star. I do definitely want to try out more of his work in the future though. After that one, another book by an author I have read and loved previously is Hunger, A Memoir of My Body by Roxane Gay. Okay, so this one I finally read and knocked off my shelves, and I did really well, I don't know if enjoy is the best word for describing this book. I thought it was a very well done read. It is very powerful, it's very impactful. It almost feels like you are reading Roxane Gay's diary. It is so personal. There are certain points where I think you can kind of understand that she's talking about some very heavy things, and you can almost feel in her writing that she becomes defensive or starts to like dissociate herself from them. But again, very difficult read. However, I did find it very impactful. It's very memorable, and I had to give it 5 stars. I really, again, enjoyed. Not the best word, but like that's what my brain automatically goes for. So this was a very memorable read, and I like having it on my shelves. I tried to change up my verbiage there. After that one, on a lighter note, is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I was lucky enough to receive an ARC of this from NetGalley, and I cannot wait to read it next month. It's super ironic that I said on a lighter note, given the fact that this book is talking about grief in many different ways. I would not call this a particularly light book because it does tackle some pretty heavy topics, but at the same time, it still has a very light, whimsical feel throughout it. I don't know how TJ Klune manages to balance both of those in such a beautiful way, but he does. As I mentioned in my previous predictions video, I had a ARC of this and I ate it up so quickly. I was reading it on my phone, and I remember after I finished the book, I literally just sat there for like 15 minutes hugging my phone to my chest, crying. As you can see, I still need to go through and annotate all of the beautiful and wonderfully relatable lines that I took note of whenever I read the arc. Haven't made time for it, but I promise I'm going to eventually. This was actually my best book of 2021, so yes, it was 100% a 5-star read. And this one is going to be a very long title that I'm gonna actually read off. The Woman They Could Not Silence, the timeless story of an outspoken woman, the men who tried to make her disappear. I feel like I missed an "and" when typing that. So yes, this is actually the one book on this list that I don't own. I don't particularly know if I would want to buy a copy, just because I don't think this would be nearly as impactful upon reread. On top of that, it's quite chunky. It is a fairly big book. I really enjoyed this. Unsurprisingly, Kate Moore's writing was absolutely fantastic. I ate this book up. I could not stop listening to the audiobook whenever I was reading it. She manages to tell this story in a way where she interweaves all of these facts and her research, but she also makes it feel sort of fictitious and nearly like a thriller. It's so impressive on Kate Moore's work, and this has further cemented the fact that anything that woman writes, I'm definitely gonna read. I love that she is bringing attention to these stories of women throughout history that don't actually have a lot of attention. I had never heard of this woman prior to reading this book, and I'm still so shocked by that. She was such an influential and impressive person that I really think this woman needs more attention throughout history, so I'm very glad Kate Moore wrote this book. I had such a fun time reading it, and yes, this was definitely a 5 stars. Okay, so out of the 5-star predictions I had, 4 of them were in fact 5 stars, which means I know my reading taste pretty well, if I do say so myself. I do have a few more books this time around. All of these I already own, and I'm saying that because when I put them on my own TBR and then expect them to be 5 stars, especially putting them in a video, I really hope that means I will prioritize reading these a lot sooner. I'm not gonna hold myself accountable to that, but I am hopeful. Diving right in, the first one is The Dark Tide by 𝗖cie když, and I am gonna be completely honest, I had never heard of this book prior to Josh actually buying it for me in a mystery book package. However, I think he did so well with the description. He thought it sounded just like something I would enjoy. He was not wrong, and honestly, the more I think about it, the more I expect that I'm gonna love this book. I don't know why. I just think I'm going to. So the tag that made him pick this up says, "Every year an innocent life must be sacrificed to the Witch Queen. She doesn't want her brother to be chosen. YA fantasy, sapphic romance." Not only does this have a romantic element, it is a fantasy, it is going to have a brother-sister relationship, but also, I don't know why, the vibes I'm getting from the title and the cover is just automatically putting me into that dark fairy tale feel, which I've come to learn I absolutely adore and always goes very well for me. I have also seen reviews that say this has very beautiful, flowery, lyrical writing, and that is another thing that is a very big plus in my book. I'm really hopeful this will be 5 stars. I have no idea. I honestly don't know anybody who has read this. I don't have much expectation going in. Next up is one I have heard only positive things about, and that is Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. I'm gonna be completely honest, this was initially a cover pick because this is beautiful. I don't even usually like people or faces on my book covers, but this one, it's so gorgeous. This is a Little Mermaid retelling in which we are following a mermaid who I believe is supposed to gather the souls of people who die in shipwrecks, but one day she ends up saving a boy instead, and then of course that ends up having unforeseen consequences. I have also heard that the writing in this is very beautiful, lush, so of course that's another big plus for me. On top of that, I think this is actually going to be the start of a series, so I'm really intrigued on where that's gonna go. Again, Little Mermaid retelling, and I did really love To Kill a Kingdom, which was a Little Mermaid retelling as well. Not to mention the fact that I'm very hopeful this will have that dark, creepy fairy tale feel that I was literally just talking about. See, that like aesthetic has just taken over my reading life, and I'm not mad about it. Hopefully this will be 5 stars for me. Okay, next up is one which, when I'm filming this, I haven't started reading it, but it is on my April TBR, so hopefully I will love it. Also, excuse this lighting, I forgot to close the window. That is The Starless Sea. Oh, we're gonna put you over here. The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Every time I hear a new review, it's always negative, but I also have to say, I think it's just because this is definitely not everybody's cup of tea. Neither was The Night Circus though, and I loved that book. This is Erin Morgenstern's second book, and Again, beautiful, whimsical writing, very atmospheric story. I think this is also a book within a book scenario where we are following a young man who is reading different tales within a book that we are also reading, and then eventually he finds a story within said book of his own life. It goes from there. That's about all I know in terms of plot, but this gorgeous cover, the positive things I've heard Hannah at A Clockwork Reader spew about this just makes me think I am going to really love it. Like I said, I've heard so many negative things, but that often comes from people who admit it is not their thing, and I think it's going to be mine, hopefully. We shall see later this month. Oh, and I also recently found out that there is a queer romance side plot. So, you know, that's just ticking another box for me. Okay, next one. I don't know why these last two are both huge, and as we're aware, I'm scared of big books, but City of Brass by 𝗖cie když𝘁𝘁. This is the first book in the 𝗖ście trilogy, which is a adult fantasy, and I think it's a desert-based fantasy. Yes, because this is set in Cairo. Yes, 18th century Cairo. I've pretty much only heard positive things about this book as well as this series, but everybody who's read this and knows I love We Hunt the Flame tells me that they think I will enjoy this just as much. Don't really know a ton about it. I believe it's following a young woman who is some kind of a con artist or thief, and she accidentally ends up summoning a Jinn warrior who then takes her back to Daevabad. Is that what the actual city is called? Yes, to Daevabad. Things evolve from there. Like I said, I've heard nothing but positive things about this one also. Fairly chunky. Also adult fantasy, which I kind of have a love-hate relationship with because sometimes I go in and just expect myself to be completely lost and I'm pleasantly surprised. Other times I am in fact completely lost. So I don't know which direction this is going to go for me. We'll see. But one way or another, I do really hope that I will love this. Maybe the rest of the series will be 5 stars too. That would be really nice. Okay, we're nearly there. We got 2 more. So next is one that I initially picked this up because I heard it was similar to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Yet since then, I've heard more people say don't compare the two. It's not quite the same. So I'm really intrigued to see which way this goes. And that is The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina by Zoraida Cordova. I know it's some sort of a familial generational story, which is following a group of women whose matriarch of their family recently died, and she passed on these powers to the women, I believe, but they don't really showcase themselves until a few years down the line. Then I don't know where it goes from there, if I'm honest, but all of the positive things I've heard about this revolve around the gorgeous writing and the wonderful familial dynamics that you see within this story and how much you grow to care about all of these characters, which are just a bunch of things I truly love having in books, particularly if they're character focused, which I don't know if this is or not, but I'm hoping it might be because that might mean it's even more likely I'll love it. I was supposed to read this for a book club last year and it just didn't happen, so I'm really hopeful I will eventually get around to it. Okay, finally, the last book, which is The Extraordinaries by T.J. Klune. And honestly, I think just saying T.J. Klune should showcase to you why it's a 5-star prediction, because everything I have read by the man, I love. I think my lowest rated book from him is Heart Song in the Green Creek series, and that's mostly because the main character in that is just not one of my favorite characters. Oh my god. Okay, I gotta close these blinds. This is not working anymore. Anyway, this also is revolving around superheroes. It has a queer romance, 2 things I really love, but not just that. I also think the plot of this reminds me so much of a web series I used to really enjoy. I think it was called Sub-Zero. And unfortunately for me, that webcomic series has not updated in about 18 months. I'm very sad that it has apparently fallen into the doom of never being finished. But with that being said, hopefully I can get the same kind of feels in this book, which is also like a YA superhero fantasy, and I don't think I've really ever read anything like that, obviously excluding comics. But yes, this is also the first in a series, so another one of them that I hope, if I love the first book, that means I will love the rest of the series as well. Fingers crossed. This will also be the first of T.J. Klune's work that I will be reading, which is YA, so I'm really intrigued to see how he differs his writing style and his abusing of emotions for his readers into a YA audience. We'll see how that goes. Okay, y'all, so that is it for today. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I have all my socials linked in the description if you're interested in keeping up with what I am reading. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!